Imagine realizing that hanging a framed picture of your family in the living room or, letting a golden retriever puppy sleep at the foot of your bed could be acting as an absolute, like, a non-negotiable deal breaker for divine peace entering your house.
Is a totally jarring thought.
hmm
Especially today, right?
hmm
When we treat our homes as completely customizable reflections of our own personalities. I mean, we just put whatever we want inside them.
Exactly. We think of a home as, wood, bricks, drywall. You lock the front door, you set the alarm, and your space is secure.
Right.
But when you step into the theology we're unpacking today for this deep dive, that physical boundary is just an illusion. We are looking at a concept where the home is an active, highly sensitive, unseen ecosystem.
Highly sensitive is the perfect way to put it.
Yeah, and our mission today is to explore exactly what that means for you. We're looking at what are known as the angels of mercy, or Ramat, what invites them in, and more surprisingly, the mundane, everyday things that supposedly make them wait outside your door.
And it really is a fascinating framework to explore. So, in Islamic theology, these angels are described as beings of pure light. They aren't just, cosmic messengers.
Right.
In the context of the home, they are the literal carriers of peace, emotional harmony, and blessings, which is called Barakah. But they operate on a very strict set of environmental conditions.
Very strict.
Yeah, if a space is deemed unfit, they do not compromise. They just leave.
Now, before we jump in, I want to be crystal clear with everyone listening. The material we are exploring contains very specific religious doctrines, rules, and moral judgments.
Absolutely.
Our goal today is not to endorse these views, nor are we taking sides or preaching. We are simply unpacking the mechanics of this incredibly intricate belief system impartially, so you can understand how this theology connects physical space to the unseen world.
Which is incredibly complex. The rules governing that intersection are precise. And they
Yeah.
start with the physical objects we choose to bring across our thresholds.
Right, because before we even get to human behavior, there are objects that act as immediate disqualifiers. It's like having spiritual bouncers at the door. And the most famous example of this in the texts involves the Prophet Muhammad and the angel Gabriel, or Jibril.
Yeah, it's a very grounding narrative.
Yeah.
The history goes that the prophet was deeply distressed because Jibril had promised to visit him, but the angel was essentially a no-show.
Oh, wow.
Right. The prophet waited, confused and upset. Later, they discovered that a puppy had wandered in and was hiding under a bed or a cot in the corner of the house.
Wait, an actual puppy?
An actual puppy. And when it was removed, Jibril finally appeared. He explained the delay with a definitive rule: angels of mercy do not enter a home that contains a dog.
Okay, let's unpack this. Or actually, let's just look at the mechanics here. Because a puppy hiding under a bed seems completely innocuous to a modern perspective. It's just a cute pet. So is it just about the objects themselves, or is it about what those objects represent in this theology?
If we connect this to the broader theology, it's not about the angel being afraid or, physically blocked by a dog. It's about the state of the environment.
Okay.
In this framework, the home is meant to be a sanctuary of absolute cleanliness and divine remembrance. Dogs, historically and within the specific jurisprudential context, introduce physical impurities.
Like their saliva and things like that.
Exactly, specifically their saliva, which breaks ritual purity. When you bring an animal like that indoors, purely for amusement or luxury, you are actively degrading the ritual cleanliness of the sanctuary.
Wait, but I know people who keep working dogs. Farm dogs, guard dogs. The texts actually provide an exception for them, right? How does the angel know the difference between a pet and a guard dog?
That is the exact nuance that makes this so interesting. Keeping a dog for a specific utility like hunting, farming, or guarding property is entirely permitted.
Oh, okay.
The difference lies in intention and necessity. A working dog is part of the natural order. It serves a vital function, and it generally lives outside or in designated working areas. The barrier is created when the animal is brought inside the living space merely as a pet. It crosses the line from a necessity of life into a worldly luxury that distracts the inhabitants.
So it's about aligning your environment with divine necessity rather than like worldly attachment. That makes a lot of sense. But dogs are just the first item on the list.
They are.
The theology also explicitly outlaws 3D statues, idols, and even framed portraits or pictures of living beings hung on the wall. I have to push back here. If I have a painting of my grandfather in the hallway or, a collectible action figure on a shelf, how is that driving away angels?
Well, what's fascinating here is the psychological and historical context of human behavior. Historically, statues, idols, and even portraits of revered ancestors have been the exact entry points for idolatry.
Ah, I see.
The absolute core tenet of this faith is strict monotheism, the worship of the unseen creator.
No competing focal points.
Exactly. Human beings have a natural tendency to venerate what they can see. By bringing physical representations of living things into the home and placing them on display, the theological concern is that you are subtly shifting the reverence of the household away from the creator and onto the creation.
So the environment gets compromised.
Right. Angels of mercy were drawn to spaces of absolute, undivided devotion. If the walls are covered in representations of worldly things, the space loses that pure focus. It essentially becomes a museum of the material world.
It's like trying to have a deep, meaningful conversation in the middle of a carnival.
Yeah, the environment is just too cluttered with other priorities.
Okay, so we remove the statues, the portraits are put away in albums, and the dog is out guarding the barn. We've cleared the physical floor. But the texts don't stop there. They move into the invisible environment.
Yes, the sound waves and the screens.
Exactly. If physical objects are the first filter, the invisible environment is the second, and it's highly scrutinized. The material specifically condemns musical instruments, guitars, harmoniums, drums, along with loud music and dancing.
And this is where the ancient theology collides directly with modern daily life.
Oh, totally, because it gets really specific for the digital age.
Yeah.
It explicitly names things like Hindi serials, obscene movies, and dramas that people stream on their televisions or smartphones.
Right.
But here's where it gets really interesting for the listener. The sources are basically saying your Netflix queue or your Spotify playlist has direct, unseen spiritual consequences. A soap opera is just a fictional story on a piece of glass. Why would that repel a cosmic being?
It comes down to a concept called ghafla, which roughly translates to heedlessness or forgetfulness of God.
Mm.
Think about the mechanics of a soap opera or a dramatic serial. What is it composed of?
Gossip, betrayal, manufactured conflict.
Intense anger, illicit relationships.
Right.
Exactly. The drama is the point. And when you blast that audio and video into your living room, you are demanding that your mind and your heart resonate with those lower-level human conflicts.
Oh, wow.
You are experiencing the stress and the toxicity of those fictional scenarios. Angels of mercy resonate with absolute peace. They simply cannot coexist in an airspace that is vibrating with the energetic equivalent of deceit, screaming, and superficial drama.
It forces the environment into a state of heedlessness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It drives them away, replacing divine remembrance with harem or forbidden distractions.
It's like trying to listen to a delicate symphony while someone is running a blender right next to your ear. The noise pollution just grounds out the subtlety. But let me ask you this. How do you fill the void? If you are stripping away the music, the movies, the serials, human beings need to unwind. Do they just stare at a blank wall?
Not at all. The texts are actually very pragmatic about the need for engagement. They advocate for substituting the harmful media with educational and reflective content.
Like what?
They specifically suggest news, talk shows, geographical documentaries, and they highlight a strong preference for nature shows. Things like Animal Kingdom.
I found that detail so surprising in the sources. Why nature documentaries?
Because observing nature, watching a documentary about the Mariana Trench or the migration of birds, promotes reflection. When you look at the sheer complexity of a coral reef, the mind naturally marvels at the design.
Which points back to the creator.
Exactly. In this theology, contemplating the wonders of creation is an active form of worship. It entertains you, yes, but it anchors your mind in awe, rather than pulling you into toxic human drama.
Okay, that is a brilliant distinction. Watching a lion hunt on the savannah reminds you of the grand design. Watching a fictional family scream at each other over an inheritance just drags you into the mud.
Right.
So we've curated the physical space, we've curated the digital airspace, but then we hit what feels like the most intense part of this entire ecosystem, the daily habits of the people living there.
Yes. Because in this belief system, a home cannot be spiritually empty.
A spiritual zero-sum game.
Exactly. There is no neutral territory. If the angels of mercy leave your house, they leave behind a vacuum, and something else immediately moves in to fill it.
And the primary defense against this vacuum is the concept of taharat, or physical and ritual purity. The sources claim that purity is half of faith.
It's a huge component.
If you let the house become filthy, or if the people living there neglect their own physical hygiene, like intentionally delaying obligatory baths, the angels are repelled. They are beings of pure cleanliness. But if they leave, the texts say the shaitan, or Satan, steps right in.
It's called the replacement effect. And the sources give a remarkably mundane, chilling example of how easily this happens.
Yeah, tell us about that.
It's not about a grand summoning ritual. They state that if a person simply unlocks their front door, walks inside, or sits down to eat, and fails to say, Ibn, which translates to, in the name of Allah, the shaitan literally turns to his unseen companions.
And announces it.
Yes,
Yeah.
he announces, we have found a place to sleep and eat tonight.
Which means if you don't actively curate the space for angels, you are by default preparing a guest room for the devil. That's a crazy zero-sum game of spiritual occupancy.
It is. If you look at it just as a magic password, it seems harsh. But the mechanism behind Bismillah is about intentionality. It is an anchor of mindfulness.
Right.
When you say in the name of God before you eat, you are acknowledging that the food is a provision. When you say it at the door, you are consciously declaring that your home is under divine jurisdiction.
And if you forget it, you're on autopilot.
You are operating solely on base human consumption. And Shaitan, in this theology, thrives in mindlessness. He exploits the spaces where people are just acting on autopilot.
So the phrase creates the force field, and the texts outline a brutal feedback loop here. The angels leave because of impurity or family arguments. The shaitan enters the vacuum, and he stirs up anxiety, instigates more petty conflict, creating a feeling of heaviness, which pushes the angels further away.
It is a downward spiral of atmospheric friction. The house just feels constantly on edge. But amidst all of these intense rules, there is a beautiful, nuanced detail from the sources that completely shifts the tone. It involves the Kiraman Katibin.
Yes, the recording angels. So the theology states that every single person has two angels assigned to them at all times. The angel on the right records your good deeds, and the angel on the left records your sins.
Right, which sounds intimidating.
Yeah, maximum surveillance. But what did you discover about the angel on the left?
The texts note that the angel on the left is under strict divine instruction to wait a while before writing down a bad deed.
Wait, really? It just pauses.
It actually pauses. It gives the person a window of time to realize they messed up and to repent. If you apologize or feel remorse within that window, the sin is never recorded.
It's a built-in undo button. It showcases this underlying theme of mercy, even amidst these super strict rules.
Exactly. The ultimate architecture of the universe here is heavily skewed in favor of mercy, not punishment. The system actively wants you to course correct.
Which brings us to the most practical part of our deep dive, inviting the Ramat, the angels, back in. Say your house feels heavy. How do you actually cultivate this environment? And more importantly, how do you know if the angels of mercy have returned?
Well, the sources list specific solutions. Removing the forbidden items, maintaining cleanliness, reading morning and evening prayers.
Right.
And specifically reciting Surah al-Baqarah from the Quran, which the texts claim causes shaitan to physically flee the home.
Okay, so you clean the house, you're mindful at the door, you've played Surah al-Baqarah. What are the signs it worked? I eagerly read through the 7 symptoms of their presence from the sources, and they are so deeply internal.
They aren't supernatural spectacles, right?
Not at all. It's things like a sudden, completely unexplained feeling of peace, crying during prayer out of awe, a sudden distaste for sin-like, the urge to gossip or watch a toxic show just vanishes, and a sudden surge in courage and a total loss of anxiety.
If we synthesize those symptoms, they all point to one specific theological concept. Blessing. Yes. But Barakah doesn't mean sudden, immense wealth. The texts define it much more practically. It's feeling immense satisfaction with a little bit of food. It's surviving a hardship unexpectedly.
And a sudden cessation of family arguments.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? The ultimate sign of success in this theology isn't a miraculous vision, but a quiet, profound shift in the family's psychological state. A sudden harmony that feels unearned by human effort alone.
It is the tangible evidence of the unseen.
So to summarize our journey today, we started with physical blockers like statues and dogs. We moved to digital blockers like cereals and loud music. And finally, the absolute necessity of purity, saying Bismillah, and actively pursuing peace to keep negative entities out and angels in.
It's a theology that demands absolute intentionality, and I want to leave the listener with a broader philosophical takeaway inspired by the sources.
Please do.
Even if you approach these texts purely as a cultural or theological study, they raise a profound question about the spaces we inhabit. Look around your room right now. What are the objects, the sounds, and the habits you allow across your threshold? Are they inviting peace and focus, or are they quietly draining your environment of its harmony?
That is such a powerful thought to end on. Are we building sanctuaries or just engineering distractions? Thank you so much for joining us as we explored this fascinating, unseen ecosystem today. Keep questioning what you let across your threshold, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.